White House aides were bracing for fallout from President Trump on Wednesday after the Republican candidate he vigorously backed over his aides' objections lost a Deep South Senate seat to a Democrat. Aides acknowledged that Mr. Trump, who jumped in with a strong endorsement of Roy S. Moore without telling most of his advisors, rarely assumes responsibility for a misstep, and they anticipated him looking for someone to blame. By early Wednesday, the president was weighing in and painting the loss as a sign of prescience. Mr. Trump also discussed the election outcome and its potential impact on an expected vote in Congress on a sweeping tax measure. "I think it's very important for the country to get a vote next week," Mr. Trump said at the White House. "Not because we lost a seat. Wish we would have gotten the seat. A lot of Republicans feel differently, they're very happy with the way it turned out." In the White House, there was a sense of relief among some aides that they would not have to answer for Mr. Moore's actions in the Senate. But aides said that Mr. Trump might still fault others for the loss. The list of those who might be the targets of his ire include the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, whose advisors pressed the president to back Senator Luther Strange in the primary, only to see him lose. One of the advisors said that Mr. Trump would still nurse a grudge against Mr. McConnell, whose instincts the president does not trust, for leading him to the original endorsement. Those advisors said the president was troubled watching a stream of Republicans step away from Mr. Moore over decades-old allegations of sexual misconduct with teenagers, and he did not want to join the stampede. Instead, the president threw the full weight of his office and reputation behind Mr. Moore. White House aides were also bracing for the president's reaction toward Stephen K. Bannon, his former chief strategist who had publicly said Mr. Trump's base was with Mr. Moore and suggested the movement would march on without the leader of the party. Mr. Bannon's continuing sway over Mr. Trump has deeply bothered the advisors still on the government payroll, and they were optimistic that the outcome in Alabama would weaken his grip. Mr. Trump's first reaction to the Democratic Party's win, which he absorbed while in the White House residence, alone for much of the evening, with the First Lady out of town, was a demure Twitter post congratulating Doug Jones. "A win is a win," Mr. Trump wrote, adding that Republicans would have another chance at the seat vacated by Jeff Sessions, now the Attorney General, soon enough. It was a surprisingly gracious tweet from a president who had excoriated Democrats, attacked Mr. Jones and insisted Republicans needed the vote from Alabama in a string of statements over the past week. The president's aides spun the loss as belonging squarely to Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore had been accused of sexual assault and child molestation by a number of women, one of whom said she was just 14 at the time he made sexual contact with her. Mr.